MacBook Air M1 vs MacBook Air M2. The MacBook Air M1 is a beautiful laptop. Its near weightless, thin design makes it a no-brainer to toss your MacBook into your bag wherever you go, and the MacBook Air M2 is even thinner. Both laptops are stunning, but they come in slightly different color configurations. You can't get a gold MacBook Air M2 or blue-black MacBook Air M1. Fans of Apple's classic space gray are in luck either way. There are also some very slight differences in the keyboard and trackpads. The MacBook Air M1's trackpad is already enormous, but the MacBook Air M2's trackpad is a teensy bit larger. The MacBook Air M2 also ditches the MacBook Air M1's half-height function row on its keyboard for a full-height row. The MacBook Air M2's biggest feature upgrades are its 1080p webcam and its addition of a MagSafe charging port. The lack of a dedicated charging port is one of the MacBook Air M1's largest annoyances. It only has 2 Thunderbolt ports and a headphone jack. The added charging port on the Air M2 means you don't have to clog up one of your 2 Thunderbolt ports when charging. The 1080p webcam on the MacBook Air M2 is a big upgrade over the MacBook Air M1's 720p webcam, which is grainier and needs more light to look good. The MacBook Air M1 pulls ahead in audio performance. Apple decided to remove the grills from the MacBook Air M2's chassis and integrate them between the display and keyboard. If the audio sounds like it's muffled, that's because it is. It's disappointing. Both MacBook Air models have the same speaker drivers. But even though the M2 MacBook Air has 4 speakers, 2 tweeters and 2 woofers, while the M1 just has stereo speakers, the M1 sounds clearer because it not only has traditional speaker grills but the speakers are placed more conscientiously. While the M1 MacBook Air's display is impressive, M2 has a few improvements. The M1 uses a liquid retina display, which is a 13.3-inch 2560 by 1600 pixel monitor with 400 nits of peak brightness and support for millions of colors on the P3 color gamut. The MacBook Air M2 uses a Super Retina display, a 13.6-inch 2560 by 1664 pixel panel with 500 nits of peak brightness and support for billion. The MacBook Air M2's extra brightness and better color gradients are enough to give it the win. The Apple Silicon M2 processor is an improved version of Apple's M1 chip. The newer processor's cores are slightly more powerful and notably more efficient than the M1's cores. Both the M1 and M2 processors on the MacBook Air give you an 8-core CPU with 4 performance cores and 4 efficient cores. For simple tasks, like browsing a website or writing a paper, single-core performance will matter more than multi-core performance. Your computer won't need to spread the task's workload over multiple cores when one core can do the job. Tasks with lots of moving parts, like editing a Photoshop file or playing a video game, will make use of the multiple cores and drain your battery faster, since it needs more power. The M2's gains over the M1 are more noticeable in multi-core performance than they are in single-core performance. It's only 11% faster in single-core tasks, and the M1 is already fast enough to open 20 tabs on Google Chrome before it starts dragging, for instance. Meanwhile, the M2 chip is 15% to 18% faster in multi-core tasks. If you're a heavy power user or plan on using your MacBook Air to the limit, you will notice slightly better performance. The M2 also has a ProRes decode engine that's just for handling media, so media creators will benefit from the upgrade more than most. Otherwise, the M1 is plenty powerful already.